So as of this week, Kickstarter, who you may have heard of, one of the most successful crowdfunding platforms ever to exist, particularly on the internet, has raised $1.5 billion for roughly 79,000 successful projects. In 1995, another gentleman had a desire to help his friends stay connected, so he started an email list. He was keeping them aware of local events, things happening amongst their community, and this grew into what we now know as Craigslist. In 1934, a production began on a groundbreaking motion picture. This project would take about 2 years to produce and would be hailed as one of this gentleman's greatest motion pictures, and that's Charlie Chaplin's Modern Times. See, in this film, Charlie Chaplin, he speaks directly to the condition that he himself was experiencing, the Great Depression. From an experience that was so deep, so profound, we see glimpses of Charlie's own life as he goes through this. And you see, it doesn't really matter whether it's a successful crowd-funded campaign. It doesn't matter whether it's Craigslist. It doesn't matter whether it's a Charlie Chaplin film. Ultimately, each one of these is an expression of the Creator's heart. And when somebody speaks from their heart, unlike somebody who's simply giving information, you have to stop, and you have to listen, and you have to take notice. And more often than not, it doesn't end at just listening. It doesn't end at just taking notice. It actually ends in a response, in some sort of action. It kind of goes without saying that today it's easier than ever before to create things, in particular, digital materials. And it kind of goes without saying that as time marches on, it'll become easier and easier to create things. And we'll say this each day in the future, and the next day, and the next day. See, each one of you in this room is passionate about something. I'm passionate about something. I'm passionate about all sorts of things, my ministries, my callings. You're not any different. You're passionate about your ministries, your callings, your organizations, and your causes. And I believe that each one of you is on this fervent and this deep campaign to bring others into that same purpose with you. But see, I'm not really here to convince you of your calling or your purpose or your mission or your campaign. You're already convinced. The issue ultimately lies in getting others to come on board with you. As I already mentioned, we have digital tools, we have computers, tablets, the web, apps, and on and on and on it goes. But yet with all these ways of reaching people, we often find our communication is ultimately ineffective. I'm sure we're all good at printing stuff, we're all good at posting stuff, liking stuff, swiping stuff, Instagramming stuff, watching stuff, clicking stuff. But that's not really the issue, is it? I think we fail to realize that each thing that we post or publish or print or show is ultimately a reflection of who we are, who our organizations are, who our ministries are. See, it'd be kind of a problem if I had a meeting with the President of the United States and I showed up wearing a plaid suit with a plaid hat and plaid socks and plaid everything. Because no matter how big of a message that I had to present to him, no matter what proposition I came along with, he would be slightly distracted by what I was wearing. We would have a difficult time in having any sort of meaningful conversation. I think our digital creations need to be thought in a very similar way to our clothing. When I look around the room, when you look at me, what we wear is very much a representation of who we are. The things that we create and post and publish are reflections of our organizations, our causes, our person, and ultimately our hearts. When we fail to realize this, we produce things that don't communicate, that don't speak to the heart, and ultimately find themselves ineffective. In my years as a visual designer, I've been privileged to work with a wide variety of companies, whether it's Fortune 500 companies, or it's a small hot dog cart, or maybe it's a flyer for a neighborhood event. And it doesn't really matter who it is or what it is. whether it's a large church or any number of things, ultimately, I've found that the most effective campaigns are the ones that are driven by passion and ultimately driven by somebody's heart. I'd like to propose to you or submit to you that the way to create everything, whether it's small or big, is to start by looking deep inside your heart. Because if we don't, all we're producing is stuff. We're producing things, and they ultimately have no meaning. Look inside your email box, right? Most of you probably have multiple email accounts. One is for junk, and one of them is for your real communication. It's the truth. Look inside of your spam folder. It's primarily junk, and then you have your real communication. And how many of us have received newsletters from fellow people in this same room that we deleted because in our mind we thought it was junk? And I think when we think about that, the real reality is that we have stopped communicating with our hearts. We've stopped communicating from the things that really drive us. And so it doesn't really matter what the medium is at the end of the day. And it doesn't really matter whether you have the resources or not to really get where you want to go right now. But I truly believe that if you start from in here, you'll find the resources, you'll create the things that matter, you will start producing, whether it's a film, whether it's a simple printed flyer on a copy machine, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. Because when you speak from here, people can hear that you are speaking from here. You know, a lot of times we think about this generational gap. I don't know if I fit into a millennial or if I fit into Gen X or whatever it's called. I know I don't fit into a baby boomer. But I'm somewhere in between. When somebody told me that I was a millennial at one point, I thought, hey, who wouldn't want to be? The Millennium Falcon is a really neat ship. And, you know, so when we think about this and we think about, hey, you know, I hear organizations all the time saying, hey, we need to get on this medium or this platform or whatever it might be. You know, and then I think about this generation, right, that is often described as, you know, kind of impatient and they just want things now. There's no time to produce. But I really don't think whatever generation you're a part of or you identify with, that you're any different from any other generation, because ultimately we're all looking for something real, right? We're all looking for something that really speaks to us. Whether it's a 6-second Vine clip or it's a feature-length film, it doesn't really matter. We're looking for something that's authentic and really speaks, and that always starts from the heart. So your digital tools, your digital creations, whatever it might be, is ultimately an extension of your heart.